program.
What you talking about?
The program. The program. Get with the program.
Everybody clap to this. Say what?
Get with the program.
It starts now.
Hello and welcome to Get With The Program Radio Show. I'm your host, Gary Jones. Get With The Program Radio Show is a multicultural, informative, relevant, and entertaining one-hour weekly show offering you a combination of diverse interviews with questions and comments. And as always, we will act as a positive source of information. Now listen, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, all you have to do is log into www.getwiththeprogram.biz. Shoot me an email, leave me a message. You never know. You may have a conversation that we would love to talk about. Or give me a call at 919-255-2757. Again, the number is 919-255-2757. Now listen, today we're going to be joined in a conversation with Mr. Keith Sutton. Keith Sutton is an education innovator, public servant, entrepreneur, and advocate for children and families who has married his passion for education to his expertise in relationship management. Now, Sutton is the founder of Focus LLC, a firm designed to support organizations in the improvement and transformation of education. Prior to Focus, he spent time as the Excellence Director for BEST North Carolina, an education think tank committed to improving North Carolina's education system through policy and advocacy. A Rocky Mount, North Carolina native, Sutton has served his community and Raleigh for nearly 2 decades through work on boards and committees, including the state's NAACP, Triangle Urban League, Healthy Schools Task Force, Raising Achievement, and Closing Gaps Task Force, the Greater Raleigh Chamber of Commerce, the Southeast Raleigh Assembly, and Blue Ribbon Committee on the future of Wake County. Now, Sutton has served as a member of Wake County Board of Education since 2009 and currently serves as the board chair. He also serves as the board's chair in 2013. He is a member of the Triangle East chapter of 100 Black Men, Unity Lodge 64 of Prince Hall Masons, and the Iota chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Today, our topic is concerns within the school system. Hello, Mr. Keith Sutton, and welcome to Get With The Program Radio Show.
Good afternoon, Brother Jones. Good to be here with you. I appreciate you.
It's a pleasure, my brother. It's always good to have, to be able to get you off your busy schedule, because I know you're busy. I keep up with you quite a bit.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, look, we know a lot is going on, Mr. Sutton. A lot of things are going on now, particularly with the school systems and, of course, with COVID going on. So we're going to get right into it. I want to start from the top. In reference to the board, what motivates you to become a board member? What motivated you to be involved with this?
One, I think being a public servant and just a desire to be of service. You mentioned in my bio the marrying, if you will, of my passions around, civil rights and that sort of thing. I got started, doing some race relations work, been executive director for the state NAACP, started a National Urban League affiliate here years ago and ran a Triangle Urban League for several years. So got some experience over the years in building and improving race and community relations. Then also worked on several campaigns back in my younger years. Worked with Congresswoman Eva Clayton, who you might remember. Governor Bear Perdue helped her become in office. And what I learned from those strong women was how to use public policy to help those that are less fortunate, that don't have an ability to advocate for themselves, and to help empower and uplift our communities, which is much of the work with the NAACP, the Urban League, and that sort of thing. So serving in public office, and particularly being on the school board, has allowed me to be able to advocate for all children, to advocate for specifically our communities and our young children, and using public policy and education policy as a lever, if you will, to do that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, what do you see as the board's roles and responsibilities? Because a lot of people really I often get that question, exactly what is it, the roles and responsibility of the board?
School board, really, we have two main policies. That is, two main responsibilities. One is to set policy for the school system, and then two is to hire the superintendent. And then the superintendent works and manages the day-to-day operations of the school district, does all the other hiring of her chief leadership team and that sort of thing. But we work closely with the superintendent to create and manage that policy. Superintendent's role is to implement that policy and manage that manage the day-to-day operation of the school system.
Wonderful. Now, how can a board know? Because we see the meetings, we know that the board is busy. How can a board know if its goals are being accomplished and its policies are being carried out? How can we know that?
Well, obviously, we're in the business of educating students, and so when we're seeing students being successful, when we're seeing students graduating, contributing to the society, then we know matriculating and going on to college, the workforce, the military, what have you. Then we know that we are being successful, on a large scale. When we are able to see kids that have a variety of challenges, be it socially, economically, what have you, and that they too are being successful, that we're closing gaps and making sure that all students are matriculating, are learning, are being academically and socially successful, then that is how we know that we are accomplishing our mission. And so what we look at to help measure that, particularly around graduation rates, where we're seeing almost over 90% of our students in Wake County are graduating. Our graduation rates are increasing for African American students, students with disabilities, economic disadvantaged students. We're seeing those rates increase as well. We're seeing more students going on to college. We're seeing more students get more scholarship money. So those are some of the metrics that we look at in terms of how we measure if we are being successful in that. And of course, when our staff and administration is able to do that and do those things successfully, then we can tell too that, for the most part, policies are being followed. Of course, there are instances when, they're not, when we're seeing also students being suspended, African American students being suspended at a disproportionate rate. So, it's not all bells and whistles. We have our challenges as well too, and those are instances too where we're seeing either policies not being followed or our values and the things that we think are important in terms of equity and equity of learning and access to great teachers and that sort of thing, where there's work to be done as well.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my next questions. What are some of the current challenges of facing education and the boards?
Outside of the pandemic, which is probably our biggest challenge right now, many of those things, I think, achieving equity, making sure that, again, that all of our students, but particularly those students who need the most, for example, have access to your most effective teachers. That involves the hiring, recruiting, and retaining of not only quality talent, but a diverse pool of talent. Making sure that we have just as many great teachers of color, and that students can see teachers that look like them standing in front of the classroom. That not only helps with learning, but it helps with behavior issues and that sort of thing as well. It reduces dropout rates. It cuts down, and there's research that shows when students have at least one African American teacher between the first and the fifth grade, for young black men, it reduces the dropout rate by 40%. And there's a body of research, an emerging body of research that shows that. So the importance of having same race teachers is important. So that's a challenge. We're a growing system, so we're continuing to grow and building and constructing new schools, but making sure that those schools that are existing, again, have the same resources as those newer schools is also a challenge, and part of when I talk about equity, what that looks like. So those are just a few of the challenges that we see. Again, trying to continue to bring down suspension rates for African American students. We still see a disproportionately high number of African American students being suspended. That is a challenge. Funding continues to be a challenge as we see more and more of a public attack. An attack on public education, both at the federal and state level, and we continue to see cuts to our budget. That is a challenge as well. So those are just a few to kind of name a few.
That's a good point. Based on diverse cultures and races, is there a need for more black teachers and Hispanic teachers, or do we have enough?
We don't have enough. As I talked about, the importance of having same race teachers. Now, that's not to say that teachers of a different race can't be successful with students, but there is, or you improve the chances of being able to relate. And we do know that, particularly in this day and time, relationships matter, and relationships with students matter. And so when you have a teacher that understands, that student's background, that can relate to different experiences or similar experiences of a student because of similar background, similar upbringing, coming from similar neighborhoods or what have you, that helps in building those relationships. We do not have enough. Our teaching force right now in Wake County is about 85% white female. Our African American student population is just under 30%. I want to say it's about 27 or 28%. So there is more work that we can do to hire, recruit, and retain teachers of color, both black and brown teachers. And we have to do that, I think, by being more intentional about how we recruit, where we recruit. I don't think it's enough to just go and set up a desk or, a booth or table at an HBCU. But I think it starts with developing stronger relationships with historically black colleges and universities that have schools of education, departments of education. Starting those relationships early, identifying students early on that are black and brown students who have an interest in becoming a teacher. Starting to nurture those relationships their senior year in high school. We have a program now where if a senior graduates and goes to college, majors in education, and graduates with an education teaching degree, we give them a conditional letter of employment when they graduate from high school. And we say to them, if you graduate in 4 years or 5 years with an education degree, teaching degree, you have a job in Wake County. So if you come out as a senior, and if you just go and do what you're supposed to do as an education major and come out, you've already got a job here in Wake County. So we refer to that as sort of a grow your own strategy, where we identify talent early and those who want to teach early on and nurture them over that 4 years while they're in school to help their interests and nurture their interest in becoming a teacher.
That is wonderful. What we're going to do, we're going to take a break right here, Keith. And for my listeners, we are joined today with Mr. Keith Sutton, and he has an extensive bio. But Keith has served as a member of the Wake County Board of Education since 2009 and currently serves as the board chair. And we're talking about Wake County, North Carolina. But what we're going to do, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you, Keith, what has been some of the difficult challenges for educational outcomes during the COVID pandemic? All right, listen, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this. Hello and welcome back to Get With The Program radio show. Again, I'm your host, Gary Jones. Now listen, today we're joined in conversation with Mr. Keith Sutton. Keith Sutton has served as a member of the Wake County, North Carolina Board of Education since 2009 and currently serves as the board chair. Hello, Mr. Sutton, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Gary. Glad to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, before we took the break, the question I did mention, what have been some of the difficult challenges for educational outcomes during the COVID pandemic?
Sure. I think the biggest challenge, obviously, is ensuring that students are able to receive a high quality education in a virtual online environment. That's, I think, our biggest challenge. Along with just trying to maintain safety and keep students safe, keep our teachers and employees safe. But again, our goal is teaching and learning. That's our core business. And so at the end of the day, how do we keep students and teachers and employees safe, but at the same time still deliver high quality instruction to students in a totally different way than what we've been used to doing in the past through face-to-face instruction.
Now, what are we doing, Keith, to assure that all students have proper equipment for online programs? Because now we're doing everything virtual. So what is the board and what are we doing to make sure that all students have the proper equipment?
Yeah, so we already had some funding set aside in our capital budget to purchase devices, including laptops and mobile hotspots. We had in our plan or our vision as a district within 2 years to be a one-to-one district. And by that, I mean every student has a computer or a device. We were 2 years out from that, but that funding was already in place for that. So what the pandemic did was really accelerate that plan to become a one-to-one district and make sure that every student has a device. Now, that's quite an expensive proposition for us. We're the largest school system in North Carolina. We are 16th largest in the country. We have over roughly 163,000 students in about 191 schools. Our budget is about just short of $2 billion, about a $1.9 billion budget. So we were able to use some of our what we refer to as our capital funds, and these are monies that we use for building construction and renovation and that sort of thing. But it also allows for purchasing of furniture, equipment, and that sort of thing. So we were able to take some of that funding, along with some of the state and federal stimulus money that came through for the pandemic. Pandemic recovery funds, or CARES funding. So along with funding from those two pots, we were able to purchase, and I'm not sure where we are now, I want to say about 30,000 or so devices. So many of our students who did not have access or now got to have a device. We also provided new devices for many of our teachers because they too obviously are working from home and we're providing virtual learning. And then for those that could not or did not have access to, good internet, I think we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 or so mobile hotspots that we purchased and distributed to those students who requested. And that was earlier in the year. I think by now, most, if not all, students who wanted a device or requested a device should have one by now.
Okay. Now, we understand the longer we stay in the online programs, the more students may get accustomed to using the online system, which could be good. Do you think it would be a good idea to give an option for parents or the student to choose the online or the classroom teaching as a preference? Because some parents prefer to have students go into the classroom. Some prefer to be online. What would be your preference? Where do you see that?
During the pandemic, or you mean ongoing?
Ongoing.
No. I think all students should be in the classroom. You cannot replicate what you get in face-to-face interaction and instruction. There's no way to replicate that online. And I think particularly for our youngest students, pre-K through probably elementary, that face-to-face online, and let me just talk a little bit about how the importance of teachers and what teachers do. And I think all of us have a new a newfound respect and appreciation for what teachers do if we've had to help our students or assist our students with online learning over these last few months. But the encouragement, not just the direct instruction, the face-to-face instruction, but the support, the encouragement, the coaching, the reinforcement that teachers provide in a day during that face-to-face instruction is very difficult to try to replicate online or in a virtual environment. We're doing our best, and some students have been successful and thrive in that environment. Other students, it's been a challenge. But I think for all students overall, you cannot underestimate the benefit of having that face-to-face instruction. Now, what this does allow us to do is in those times where, for example, there was inclement weather. You have a snow day, some other disaster, a power outage of some sort. Other instances where we need to transition to for a temporary time. That allows us to be able to do that. But on a long-term, ongoing basis, no. Face-to-face, I think, really is quite frankly, for K-12, pre-K-12, is where we need to be and the way to go.
Okay. Now, will the schools be staffed enough for the return of the students to provide them with proper education? Because from what I hear and read, some of the teachers are leaving some of the schools, retention rate for some of the teachers. When schools open back up and we go back into the classroom, will we be staffed enough? Are you prepared? Are the school boards, are we prepared to be staffed enough with the teachers?
When we go back, Yes, I mean, we have not seen. We've looked at both attrition rates in terms of retirements and those that have left or resigned and left their profession. We have not seen a huge difference in what we saw numbers-wise a year ago before the pandemic and now. So when we come back and things kind of settle down and we're back to the normal or the new normal, as some refer to it, I think we'll be fine. We are seeing some challenges now, and that is not just in education or among teachers. So we're seeing a reduction in the overall labor market, and so in teaching and teachers, but also in other industries because of the impact of the pandemic and as you see people being quarantined, some self-quarantining as they come into contact with someone that's tested positive. That's happening, everywhere.
Right.
So right now we are challenged with not only having enough teachers in the building because of the impact and the rising numbers, but then that impacts your sub workforce and substitute teachers. So we're getting to a critical point now that we are seeing challenges with having appropriate staff in the building. But again, that's across the board because the entire labor market is experiencing the same challenge.
Once again, we're joined in conversation today with Mr. Keith Sutton, and Keith Sutton has served as a member of the Wake County Board of Education since 2009 and currently serves as the board chair. Now, Keith, what we're going to do, we're going to take another break. When we come back, I had a chance to talk to some teachers out in the world, and the question that we're going to ask you is, teachers pay fair in response to the work that they do in response to online and the classroom? Because now what I'm hearing is teachers are doing online and classroom jobs. So is the pay fair enough for them? So when we come back, we're going to touch that question and see what your conversation will be about that. Listen, don't touch that dial. You listen to Get With The Program radio show. Now I want to reach out to my good friend Steve Rao. Steve Rao, my political analyst. Steve Rao, tell me, man, what's going on with this budget, with this COVID relief, the stimulus money, and of course the vaccines? What's going on that end, Steve?
Well, Gary, it's a pleasure to be here today on Get With The Program. And the first thing going on in our country is, as we're dealing with a global pandemic, millions dead around the world, expected to be 419,000 dead by the end of January, the United States Congress is in a stalemate now on the $908 billion stimulus relief bill. This bill, which was voted on, was supposed to provide $600 per dependent or per individual, another $325 billion for businesses. President Trump is refusing to sign this bill because he says that's not enough money. He wants Americans to receive at least $2,000. So we have to see what Congress will deal with, so there's not a government shutdown, and we can keep money coming in to the hands of the American people, families who are struggling. And the bill also does a lot of other things, but the most important thing is getting money in their hands to help our citizens. The second thing, as we deal with the economy, is the rapid rollout of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine and Moderna vaccine. Already in North Carolina, 24,500 have been vaccinated, and we plan to have at least 100 million vaccinated by the beginning of the summer. We want to congratulate all those researchers and scientists, along with the healthcare workers, who are working to vaccinate as many Americans as possible, starting with first-line health workers and high-risk patients, eventually by the spring and middle of the summer to the average American who will be vaccinated. That's all I have for today, but we're trying to keep the economy strong, and we're trying to get our nation healthy, and we're trying to beat this pandemic.
Now I want to reach out to my good friend, comedian Grave Digger. Grave Digger, man, what are you dealing with right now? What you dealing with? You always dealing with something. What's the deal, Grave? What's the deal?
Dealing with this covert, whatever it is, virus that's going around and stuff. Y'all got y'all stimulus check. Now they voting today to get you another stimulus check. They sending out virus checks. They sending out stimulus checks. They sending out all these checks. I ain't seen no check for Side pieces. Side pieces need their money too. You know, they gotta stay by themselves and stuff, cause all these husbands gotta stay at home with their wives. And y'all notice domestic crime is going up, cause fellas ain't used to staying home with their wife all day. You know what I'm saying? And then the side piece, she's supposed to be getting her side piece check. Cause you know, side pieces are used to getting that half a tank of gas a week, going down, getting that pawn shop jewelry. You know what I'm saying? Side pieces, you know, getting 2 or 3 of their nails done, cause the fellas can't pay for a whole set. You know, I'm gonna have to call them, tell them, get that side piece stimulus check out. You know what I'm saying? Y'all enjoy yourself. Gary, it's back to you, bruh. I'll holler at y'all. Peace.
Hello and welcome back to Get With The Program Radio Show again. I'm your host, Gary Jones. Now, today we're joining conversation with Mr. Keith Sutton. Keith Sutton serves as a member of Wake County Board of Education since 2009 and currently serves as the board chair. Mr. Sutton, welcome back to the show again.
Thank you, Gary.
Now, we did talk about a lot of things before we got here, but now I want to ask you pretty much in reference to teachers' pay, are they getting paid fair enough for the amount of work that they're doing? Now, have they considered giving them more money, more raise? Because now they got the online and the classroom. So they got two things going on now.
So let me just start in terms of where teacher salaries are, particularly in North Carolina. Okay. North Carolina is one of the lowest states in terms of its pay for teachers. Mm-hmm. North Carolina ranks about 46th in the country in teacher pay. Now, in all fairness to the legislature and the General Assembly, teacher salaries have been raised now, I think, for the last three years straight. Mm-hmm. And we still are at the bottom in terms of about being 45th or 46th. We rank second in the Southeast behind Georgia in how we pay our teachers. Our teachers make on average, I want to say it's 46,000 or so. Georgia pays its teachers around the average salary is about 52,000, if I remember correctly, and so we still lag by about $6,000 to $8,000 behind the state of Georgia, just in the Southeast, mm-hmm. in terms of teacher pay. So, and teacher salaries are controlled by the state, and the state pays teachers. We in Wake County and most districts offer a supplement, which is a percentage of that salary, and we give them a supplement on top of what the state pays in their base salary. And here in Wake County, we have the highest supplement in the state, which is somewhere around 11 to 12% on top of their base salary. Mm-hmm. So teachers are relatively speaking, in terms of the rest of North Carolina, are paid a little better in Wake County, but as a state, we are still very, very low. As it relates to your question around the pandemic, we know that teachers have taken on much more responsibility and work during the pandemic and online learning. Like most people that I hear and talk to, when you're working from home, it's not as easy as sort of cutting on at 8 and shutting off at 5 o'clock. You know, the day extends beyond that, and some are doing double duty and teaching both in the classroom, as we have returned some students, and still maintaining their online or virtual students as well. And so there is still, I think, some inequity, but again, we haven't been given any additional funding to pay teachers for the additional work. Again, that comes from the state, so our hands are not trying to sort of kick the bucket or place the blame somewhere else, but we have very little control as a local district in terms of teachers' base salaries, because that again comes from the state.
Right. Now, are we seeing a success growth with remote learning? Do you see it being a success with remote learning?
I mean, honestly, I would have to say that the results for online learning are mixed, probably at best. Again, I've seen students, some students excel, and it's different across the board in terms of the profile of a student that you either think might be successful or not. So those students who tend to do well, who are independent learners, self-starters, that don't need a lot of, sort of hand-holding or guidance, some of those students tend to do well. We've also seen students struggle. I've seen some students who are more introverted than extroverted, don't like to be recognized or called on in the classroom, but like technology,
right,
and that sort of thing. Those students have tended to improve and do better. So it's a mixed bag. It's not for the results that we've seen across the board are mixed. We've tried to do things, such as reducing the amount of screen time for students and that sort of thing, being creative about ways in which we support students, both teachers and social emotionally as well. But we are seeing two things that are impacting student learning, and that is higher rates of absenteeism and students not engaging online, and as a result, we're seeing more failures.
Okay.
I think we saw where about 25% of our students are failing at least one class. And so those increased rates of failure, those increased rates of absenteeism are concerning.
Wow. Now, with that being said, students are home alone sometimes after parents go to work. Now, is remote learning effective with students being alone, or should a guardian be present? Because we go back when you mentioned in the beginning that classroom feel works. In some instances, it works, because you got the teacher there monitoring. So when parents are gone to work, when they're gone, do you think the student is more effective without the parent being there?
Well, I mean, so, you're talking about where there's no supervision of a teacher or an adult at all.
Right.
And so, again, some students, probably most students, need that to ensure that they're online, that they're doing what they're supposed to do. Again, you have some that, are self-starters, self-motivated, will hold themselves accountable. They may be able to work without any adult supervision. But particularly our younger students, they definitely not only need the supervision, the encouragement, pushing them to be engaged, to stay engaged, because you're talking about maybe sometimes 2, 3, 4 hours of sitting at the computer. That's tiring for any of us, even as an adult. And so I can't stress enough the importance of that adult supervision, be it a parent, be it a teacher or what have you. So, it is tough when students are on their own,
right?
Because I'm sure everything from the couch to the
right.
snacks
right.
to the video games and everything else
exactly.
is calling their names as they're trying to focus and stay focused and engaged on their online work.
Now, do you think should the requirements for children, should the environment, should a requirement be in effect to have a quiet place of learning? Because some students, I find, and I've seen that the environment is it may be noisy, it may be quiet, may not be quiet enough. Do you think it should be some kind of rule or some kind of requirement that the board or that the state puts in place for a student to have a quiet place to learn?
No. Rightfully so, I think. No, I say I think. Right, our authority stops at the school door and at the school building. It does extend to some degree to the bus stop, and that's about as close. And honestly speaking, we have some jurisdiction. If students are playing, get in trouble, horse playing around, somebody gets hurt at a bus stop, there's some jurisdiction that we have in terms of being able to suspend and discipline students at a bus stop. That's as far as it goes.
Right.
Us trying to dictate or legislate or put policy in place that tells people what to do in their homes and how to be a parent at home outside of the school day, while I understand the spirit and the intent of that, I would not want that, and I don't think that you would see us try to go that far. I think that would be a little bit intrusive. And I'll just say, that at the end of the day, we all have to have some level of accountability, and there's a certain amount of accountability. I think that is placed, an appropriate amount of that is placed on students themselves, and then on parents. But our authority should stop at that school door and like I said, maybe extend it to the bus stop, but that's about it.
I understand.
I think that anything else beyond that, in my opinion, would be an overreach.
I understand. Now listen, once again, you listen to Get With The Program radio show. I'm your host, Gary Jones. Today we join in conversation Mr. Keith Sutton. Keith has served as a member of the Wake County Board of Education since 2009, North Carolina, and currently serves as the board chair. We're having a wonderful conversation. Now, when we come back, Keith, I want to ask you, with the COVID numbers going up, are schools really ready to open again? And will they be ready for the remaining of the year? With the numbers going up, are they going to be ready? Listen, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this. Hey, look, right now, man, we're going to get on deck with Ursta Camille. Ursta Camille, what's the topic for today?
Today's topic, don't be moved by the boaster. Whoso boasteth himself of a false gift is like clouds and wind without rain. The boaster brags on the gift he never gives. He promises much and gives nothing. To see clouds and wind would make you anticipate or expect rain. For someone to brag or boast on giving some gift will position a person to expect to receive what has been spoken. However, when the boaster never produces, don't be discouraged or thrown off because of their lack or failure to give what they boasted about. These are big promises with zero follow-through. Listen to what they're saying, but don't internalize their words. Their failure to produce what they say has only given you the opportunity to see them for who and what they are. Clouds and wind without rain. Don't be moved by the boaster.
Hello and welcome back to Get With The Program radio show. Again, I'm your host, Gary Jones. Now, once again, today we're joining in conversation with Mr. Keith Sutton. Mr. Keith has served as a member of the Wake County Board of Education since 2009 and currently serves as the board chair. And we're talking about Wake County, North Carolina. Welcome back, Keith.
Thank you.
All right, now, the question I mentioned before we left, with the COVID numbers going up, are schools ready to open again, and will they be ready for the remaining of this year?
I mean, I think we're ready. We have done really an amazing job at accomplishing our goal of managing or controlling the spread of the virus if and when it gets into a building. And that's our goal. We as long as there is COVID in the community, there's going to be COVID in the schools, right? But what we want to do in our challenge is making sure that when there is a positive case, that there's no spread,
right,
in the buildings. We've got tons of cleaning products and sanitizer and PPE and those sort of things. We've got protocols and procedures that we've put in place to ensure that there's appropriate distance and safe distance. Every scenario from when students move around in the building, from going to restrooms to going to health and PE, cafeteria eating. There are protocols and things that are in place. Our biggest challenge has been around making sure that we have enough adults in the building because of the rising numbers that we're seeing in the community. And so again, what happens in the community is going to eventually impact on what happens in the schools. Schools are just microcosms of society and what we see in our community. I say that all the time. So as those numbers are continuing to increase, it is impacting quite honestly, the ability for people to come to work,
right?
Because they've either been, quarantined, or they have identified themselves again, as I said earlier, running into someone or coming into contact with someone who has tested positive. So then they have to self-quarantine, and so as those numbers continue to rise, it's making it more and more difficult for us to be able to staff our buildings.
Now, do you think that teachers should be included in the early vaccine process as frontline workers?
Yes, they are included, and I think they should be.
In reference to the school closing, should we consider making school closings a state movement, district movement, or by the counties and the city? I mean, because when they close the schools, what I find, Keith, is that in some towns, schools may be closed and another school may be open. And let's say perhaps if a parent has two children, and they have one that's in high school and one that's in middle school or junior, earlier school. And the one in high school, his school is open, but the other school is not. But he gets the COVID and he brings it home to this kid. This kid takes it back to the school. So with that being said, should we consider making all school closings universal?
I don't know that they should be universal, because you're going to have that to me would suggest a one-size-fits-all approach. And there's no, there are no really good options around this, and so there's no sort of cookie cutter approach for every school or every single community, every single school, or district across the state. As we've seen, different counties have implemented different things, both local areas, local communities have enacted different strategies to keep the spread of the virus or contain the spread of the virus. And so we've seen, obviously, portions of counties across the state see higher, rates of positive cases than others. So I think there are times when we're seeing things elevate to a certain level or numbers, and you've seen the governor, react and putting the policies in place that are statewide. But I think to the extent that he can, tries to leave as much control to local governments and local communities. I think we've seen the same at the national level. There are times when that sort of consistency across the board is needed, particularly around messaging such as everybody wearing a mask, right, or 6 feet distance apart. Those are things that we know that work. But as you get down to the local level, you're going to see hot spots, come up, here or there. And I think, there needs to be some flexibility to be able to respond locally, be it a particular county, even within the district. You may have a hot spot over here in, say, one part of Raleigh, but in Knightdale or Wake Forest, you don't, or vice versa. I don't know that you could make one decision and just close all schools if you're not seeing everyone sort of impacted across the board.
Right. Now, in reference to virtual learning and virtual teaching, some parents and teachers talk about just waiting until the pandemic is fixed with the vaccine before coming back into the classroom. Do you think we should just wait this out until this thing is fixed before we even bring them back into the classroom? Because we still have risk, and the numbers are going up. Because I hear people, you hear some parents say, I'm not sending my child back to school because they don't have a cure. And some parents are saying, I want my child to go back to school, because I hear some parents want the children out of the house, because some places they find that the school is a babysitting program to get children out of the house. So you think we should just wait or just go ahead and move forward?
I think that's a challenge for us as a board, as we've had to make decisions. And you touched on it, there are risks. So there are in my opinion, there are health and safety risks that we have to consider when we send students and teachers and employees back into the building. There are academic, there are developmental, there are social and emotional risks by not sending kids back into schools, particularly your younger students. Again, and that's why we made a decision that we sent our pre-K through third grade students back in the building earlier. Then we sent some of our fourth and fifth graders back a little bit earlier than our older students. As we come back for second semester, the focus has been on at least getting our younger students back in the building because of the developmental piece. Their brains are still developing. Our your K3 grades are where you learn to read. Fourth grade on, you're reading to learn. So having those and developing those early skills, those early literacy skills, the socialization skills is extremely important to students, and students lose out on that when they're not in school. We also know that there are social emotional issues. We're seeing higher rates of suicide. We're seeing higher rates of obesity. When students, depression, because students are not in school, they're not with their friends, they're not socializing. Now again, there are health and safety risks we understand on one side, but there are a lot of risks that we're seeing students experiencing by not being in school as well. So it is important to us as a board and as a district to get students back into school as soon as we can for face-to-face instruction, but doing so in a healthy and safe way.
Now, this was one of my online questions here from some to my listeners in reference to keeping good teachers. What methods are put in place for keeping a good teacher who has been in the system for a long period of time? Because you have a lot of new teachers coming in, but you have a teacher that's been there for years. What methods are put in place to ensure that that teacher is there?
Some of these tools have been taken away, but obviously higher salary, more experienced teachers, you pay a higher salary. Ones that have been around, they get some longevity pay. What your question raises the ideal issue of paying teachers also for performance. And that, because I think I heard you say how you're better or retaining your better teachers, and what tools or strategies are available for that. And so that has always sort of been a controversial issue, if you will, in terms of looking at how we compensate teachers based on performance, because it is hard to sort of measure that, and there's some question, I guess, concern or debate around, well, if we measure compensation on student performance and student test scores and student growth scores, where you hear some that will believe, well, hey, that's fair. That's what we see in other areas of the labor market. You pay for what you do, and if you do a good job, then you get compensated for that. Others you will hear say, well, that's not something that we have total control over, and there's so many factors that come into student learning or play a part in a student learning in terms of how they come to school. If students come to school hungry, if they're tired, they didn't get a good night's sleep, those are things that are beyond the control of a teacher, for example. And so why should I then, or my pay or compensation be based on things that are beyond my control as a teacher? So I just say that to say that pay for performance has always been sort of a touchy and a tricky subject here in North Carolina. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Exactly what I think you're asking is one that's been a little bit challenging to sort of figure out. But mainly around pay and compensation are our biggest ways to.
Okay. Good point there. Once again, if you just joined into the show today, we had a conversation here with Mr. Keith Sutton. Keith served as a member of the Wake County, North Carolina Board of Education since 2009 and currently serves as the board chair. Wonderful conversation, Keith. And I got one last round of question, Keith. Should teachers or counselors communicate directly in conversation with the parents on a daily basis, kind of keeping up with what's going on?
In theory or in practice, that would be great, but I think we go back to one of your earlier questions about the demands and responsibilities that are placed on teachers. And so now if we're asking them, well, hey, you got to reach out to them and send an email to every parent every day.
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
And you're asking them now to just do more, or piling on another responsibility or duty, if you will, but not paying them, anymore either. So, I mean, obviously, I understand the intent of that, and the theory behind that is good in keeping that close contact. And I'm sure that there are quite a few teachers who would probably do some of that today, but it's going to probably be with a targeted number, a specific number of students, or those who need that additional push or that additional support. But to require teachers or counselors to do that every single day for every student, I think would be tough.
Okay. Keith Sutton, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate that. Good conversation.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Got to bring you back. Absolutely. Got to bring you back as we go further into the school year. I want to bring you back and give us some updates on what's going on. Wow, good conversation. To my listeners, once again, we joined today with Mr. Keith Sutton. Keith has served as a member of the Wake County, North Carolina Board of Education since 2009 and currently serves as the board chair. Good conversation, Mr. Sutton. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate the opportunity and glad to do it. Look forward to coming back anytime.
Absolutely. Once again, you listen to Get With The Program radio show. I'm your host, Gary Jones. As I always say, stay positive, keep your head up, and remember to
Get with the program.
What you talking about?
The program. The program. Get with the program.
Everybody clap to this. Say what?
Get with the program.
It starts now.